Morning, everyone. Great to see so many individuals here already. I'm just going to give it 20 seconds, just let some late joiners join us before we kick off. We've also, obviously, I'm joined by Lucy and Birdie here, who's going to take over in a split second. We've also got Prashanth from Borderless moderating in the chat. Feel free to say hello in the chat, maybe where you are in the UK. It's always great to see people from different areas, from Cornwall to Scotland to the Midlands to the southeast. I'm currently based in London. Who's closest to me today? Hi, Natasha from Chichester. Hi, Lisa from Suffolk. Hey, Jack, Liverpool. Great to see many of you. Don't forget Yorkshire. Don't worry, Manaf. I'm not going to forget Yorkshire. Drew. Hi, Selena. Oz, London. Cool. Yeah, thanks everyone. I think this really gets the energy's high during today's session. Cool. I can see a lot more people have joined now, so I'm actually just going to pass over to Lucy from Birdie. We've been working with Lucy and Birdie for a while now. It's great to be back here again doing another partner webinar. So yeah, over to you, Lucy, and feel free to let me know as to go through the slides.
Perfect. Hello, everyone, and hello from Sheffield as well. So really nice to be here. Happy to be back. I've been away on mat leave for a while, so throwing myself back into it. So yes, this is a certificate of sponsorship webinar, incredibly important topic at the moment that we've seen a lot of people discussing. So we wanted to work with Borderless, who we've worked with many occasions, to make sure that we get this information out to those who need it. So this is why this very short section at the beginning is very short. I just want to give a little explainer as to who Birdie are and what we do, so you've got a bit more context before we get into the certificate of sponsorship discussion. So Birdie is a care management platform, ostensibly. It works by connecting everyone and everything. So we've got care management, auditing, rostering, finance, and workforce management all in the one platform. So we then automate your routine tasks, and it surfaces insights, so you can always stop juggling multiple systems and start making really key strategic decisions for your business. Respond quickly to issues, prove quality to regulators, create plans with confidence. We're hoping to, do it all, and we've got a long way there. So if you wouldn't mind, next slide. Perfect. So we're actually working with 1,200 agencies now. Always got one slightly older slide in the deck just to keep me on my toes. And a lot of those agencies find that they grow their care hours by about 20% after just 1 year on Birdie. So we're really proud about that. And one other thing that we are really proud of, if you wouldn't mind, next slide. Thank you, Will, is we always build alongside our partners. So we have a really big partner co-development program. Nothing that we make is out of nowhere or designed to hinder or hurt the industry. It's always built with people and for people doing the jobs that you are doing. So we're really proud of that. And one more thing from me is, if you wouldn't mind, next slide. Oh, Flock.
Next block.
So Flock is the free online community that I hope some of you are members of. It's run by myself, and it is slightly separate to Birdie. It is just a safe space to discuss and share and ask questions about the industry, about strategy, about practices that you may have. We always make sure to share the latest industry news and updates in there so you're kept informed. And we always provide free resources, including webinars like this through the Flock platform as well. So if you feel like joining this informal online community, there's 3,000 care leaders in there at the moment, which is crazy. Then do feel free to sign up, and I will share the link in chat for that as well. That is it from me. So apologies for that little pitching session. Let's get to the really important stuff that we're here today. Will.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you so much, Lucy. And just to echo, it's great being partnering with Birdie. And if you haven't joined Flock already, please do. I'm sure Lucy will share the link in the chat very shortly. So awesome. We are here really talk about certificates of sponsorship in Twix, all the way from application to approval, and really shifting it from maybe guesswork, having issues, getting refusals from the Home Office, to be, to put you and your best foot forward when you are submitting these essential COSs. Just some quick housekeeping before I jump into most of the text and the slides here today. Please do ask as much as you can in the chat or in the Q&A function of today's session. We find that, if you're thinking of the question, it's probably on other people's minds, and it's the most valuable part of joining sessions like this morning. Again, feel free to say hello and tell us where you are or your role. It really helps us understand who finds value in these sessions. And then finally, this session is recorded, and we'll be sharing all the slides after. No need to take extensive notes, or if you forget a tip or a trick, please don't worry. You'll be able to watch this back in your own time, whenever it's best for you, or share it internally, or share it with others that might find value from it. And then I guess a quick word on me. For those who know me, apologies. I'm always at the CARE roadshows and the CARE show. You may have seen me before, or you maybe even have joined one of our previous webinars and heard me ramble on. But for those who don't know me, my name is William Murch. I lead partnerships here at Borderless. Been working with and around adult social care sector for about 2.5 years. And yeah, real privilege to be here. Hopefully I can bring lots of knowledge from all of the customers we're supporting through this process. Awesome, good to see a few more other people saying morning as well, from South Wales, Fitzroy, Liz as well from Guardian Angels, Carers, Spelthorne. Great to have you all here this morning. Just very quickly, at Borderless, we're on our mission is a world where borders are no longer barriers, and anyone can move anywhere seamlessly and safely. This can be quite abstract. So, what this really means and what we're aiming to do is just simplify the complexities of immigration for businesses and sponsored workers. And, everyone knows, and as we're here today, certificates of sponsorship is a very complex part and an area where lots of organizations might make mistakes. On that note, though, just to keep everyone on their toes, I'm just going to push out the first poll to really understand, maybe what brought you here today. So I'm just going to push this poll out. Having run sessions similar to this and having knowing the issues with COSs, it's really interesting to know, what brought you here? Is it you've had your COS queried, delayed, or refused by the Home Office? You're not sure if your causes are correct, undefined, defined, or maybe your internal process. Maybe you're just thinking more holistically about wanting to plan your hiring timelines better. Want to get ahead and put the systems in place. Or you're completely new to assigning COS. Perhaps you're a new sponsor here today, just got a sponsor license. Maybe you've just used your first allocation and want to know what to do. Something else, if it doesn't fall into these buckets, feel free to let us know in the chat. Just going to let that run for a few more seconds. A few more people saying hello, which is awesome. Always puts a smile on my face. Cool. So lots of results already coming through. And it's a real mix. Some people, some organizations here just really want to start planning or hiring timelines better, maybe knowing when to put in the CoS application, knowing when to assign the COSs, such that you're not in a pickle where you've got people you want to hire, but no COSs in the bank to assign. Again, a few people have had their causes queried, delayed, or refused. This isn't uncommon. You're not alone with that. A handful of individuals new to assigning COSs. 50 companies a day are getting a sponsor license. So again, you're not alone with that. And then a small proportion are maybe just not sure about the causes or the applications are correct. Awesome. That really, really helps. And I hope everyone can see that you're not alone with what brought you here today. And, specifically to that, hopefully we're going to cover off lots of it. So we're going to be talking specifically around, where causes kind of fall in the problem matrix and how it's usually the start or end of lots of things. What's recently changed and why rejections are rising with COSs. When you need COSs and how to assign it, what a strong application looks like. So, if you are looking to put an application in recently or upcoming, hopefully this one will really, really benefit you. And then also the mistakes that we see across the board in terms of rejections and further checks. And then finally, building that CoS timeline into your planning. Also, it looks like we've just lost Lucy. Maybe she's accidentally clicked off, but she's back now.
I was leaving the stage to allow you to take full flow.
It's okay. And then finally, we're going to just wrap up with how Borderless helps. What we're seeing in approval rates and in Q&A. But again, feel free to ask questions as we go. If I feel that it's applicable to the slides we're talking to, happy to answer them. If not, we'll cover them at the end. I think there's one caveat there is obviously I'm not a IAA accredited immigration advisor, so I can talk more generally about CoS applications. I'm not going to dive into any specifics about any cases or give any direct guidance here. And if you do want that, we can help you with it as well. Cool. Someone from William Waterford Care. That's interesting. Given my name's William. Cool. So let's jump into it. And I guess I want to start by reframing what a certificate of sponsorship is. A lot of providers treat it as a form, perhaps to fill in, and it's not. It's really a declaration you make to the Home Office, and it's a single point where most sponsorship problems actually begin. When it's right, it goes really well, and the worker gets a visa. They can start on time, and you've got no gap in your rota to scramble or to cover. But when it's wrong, it's usually something small. Perhaps it's a salary that doesn't match or the wrong occupational code that you've selected. You might get a query or a refusal, and you're in that reapplication process again, which is going to cost you a lot more money and time and potentially delay the start date of that individual. So again, this session is really about getting it right the first time and planning such that a delay never catches you out. And we believe that everything else follows that. But why is this so important and a risk? And it's not theoretical. License revocations have been concentrated or dispersed across the UK, but concentrated in areas with lots and lots of sponsors. If you are a care provider here today, you are in the part of the market the Home Office is looking at most closely. We've actually mapped sponsor license revocations as well across the UK, and you can see here, every region has seen sponsor license revocations, and care providers unfortunately make up a large share of them. And obviously getting a CoS rejected can trigger a Home Office audit. And besides that, we're also seeing, sponsor license revocations accelerating. The changes we've seen over the last 12 to 18 months has meant that we've seen revocations, almost triple from 2023 to last year. And we're already seeing sponsor license revocations projected at double last year. So we're anticipating about 6,200 companies having their sponsor licenses taken away. Hence why I believe just getting your CoSs right will help everything downstream with the ongoing compliance. And before we go into how to get a CoS right, we've got to be honest about the current immigration world we're operating in, because it did change a year ago, and rejections have been climbing ever since. So let's look at why. We've seen a big shift, as all of you on this webinar will probably know. Since the 22nd of July last year, you can no longer sponsor a care worker, senior care worker from overseas, essentially not allowing you to use the defined CoS going forward. That route is closed. But what stays open for now is obviously in-country switching. So that's via the undefined CoS from one provider to another. Someone already in the UK on another visa who has been legally employed. And what this means is that you can imagine the pool of sponsored workers is no longer growing by net new individuals coming overseas. So your ability to extend someone's sponsorship by assigning another CoS, or your ability to get more CoSs is even becoming more competitive, right? As you want to retain these individuals such that you can really just concentrate on delivering exceptional care. So the headline here is, every CoS you assign is, an in-country switch or renewal or extension drawn from your undefined allocation. You might actually also be in a situation where you're hiring someone that falls outside of carer or senior care worker. And obviously in that case, as long as you're hitting the requirements outlined by the Home Office, you can still use defined CoSs. And we've seen that, especially in the larger organizations where it has a larger span of roles. But what does this shift mean for you? First of all, tighter scrutiny, as we've already discussed. The Home Office is checking sponsored applications more closely than ever. They've hired lots of additional staff in the Home Office to help them with enforcements and checking. We're seeing an increase in small avoidable errors, and that's what we're really going to be teeing off today. Most refusals come down to a salary, code, or a date that doesn't line up, not bad intent. 99% or 99.9% of providers I talk to, when I'm on the road at regional care shows with care associations, don't have bad intent, just unfortunately fall foul of the constantly changing landscape and the constantly changing rules set out by the Home Office. And obviously now this is that narrow route as we've described with overseas hiring closed. Cool. So, and again, just before we jump into when you might need a CoS and how to assign it, I just want to kind of get a sense check of how confident everyone is with your CoS process today. I talk with some individuals who are like, I've got this absolutely nailed. I speak with others who are maybe a bit cautious about it. So I'm just going to push that out, and this will probably mirror perhaps like why you came today. I'm just going to let that run for a second. Just going to deflect back to the chat as well. Fitzroy, I'm just going to get to your question now as well. Fitzroy has asked a really, really good one. Is the ban on external UK recruitment likely to be lifted? And I guess I presume you mean for care workers and senior care workers. This is a great question. Obviously, we've got a new Prime Minister now, Andy Burnham. Probably likely going to have a new Home Secretary, and it's unclear what will happen. But there's definitely going to be more scrutiny on the recent immigration changes and what will affect care workers, senior care workers, especially when it comes to the indefinite leave to remain. My sense check is that it might not be lifted anytime soon, but I see it hard how maybe the sector can progress and grow without loosening some rules. Skills for Care themselves say that we need 500,000 extra vacancies filled by 2040, and with the lack of domestic workers, I'm not sure how they envisage filling this. But great question, Fitzroy. If I had a magic ball and I could tell you the future, I would, but unfortunately I can't. Cool. So that poll now is just coming to an end, and it's really good to see the vast majority of people, 63% here today, are mostly confident, but perhaps it lives with one person internally. What happens there if they're off? What happens if they leave? And then actually 20%, which is really, really positive, are very confident. You have a clear process for CoSs, and maybe you're just looking to get one or two tips or tricks here today. On the flip side of that, again, some individuals not too confident, or you don't have a defined process, and that's also totally okay. What I see is smaller organizations just getting into sponsorship, maybe just don't have that rigor or defined process yet, as they're still fleshing it out. And as you grow as an organization, as you grow your sponsored workforce, that all naturally comes. But thanks, everyone. That's really helpful. Tamana is asking, does it take a long time to get approval? We're actually going to come on to the exact timelines in a second, but great question. Cool. So let's start at the beginning. When you actually need a CoS, how to assign the right kind. And this is where the differences between defined and undefined matter, and where a lot of confusion can start if you're new to it. None of this will likely come new to you as well. We've even spoken about how defined CoSs are kind of really no longer in use in the care sector. And when we're talking CoSs, we're kind of always talking undefined. But just for clarity, a defined, like there's two types of CoSs. There's defined, which is for a worker applying from outside the UK. And these are requested and approved on a case-by-case basis, and unfortunately closed to care workers since the 22nd of July 2025. On the other side of that, we have undefined CoSs for a worker switching or extending already in the UK. So you can imagine they're going from one provider to another provider already in the UK. I kind of see this as there's no flights involved. And these CoSs can be drawn from your annual allocation. And this is what 99.9% of care providers are assigning now. So if you are care, almost every CoS is undefined from your current allocation for a worker already here. But when you assign a CoS, you're committing to three things. First of all, that role is genuine, it's real, it's needed, and described accurately, such that it matches the SOC code. Second, that you'll pay at least the going rate for that role. You're committing to pay that individual. You're not going to fall under it in any specific pay period. And obviously this then falls into your ongoing compliance duties. And third of all, is the one that people might forget. You've got that ongoing set of duties that don't stop once the visa is granted, keeping proper records for each worker, running right to work checks periodically, and reporting changes on the sponsor management system, the SMS, within set windows. A CoS is almost that promise you have to keep for the life of the sponsorship of that individual, not just a box that you tick once. And this, I guess, is where providers fall short, is almost on that third one. You've designed the CoS, then you kind of forget about it, but that's not the case. Again, that CoS is a promise you have to keep, not a box you tick. But what does a strong application look like, which would leave nothing for the Home Office to query? And this is by no means an exhaustive checklist for a clean CoS, but what we see is if you can hit all of these six, you're going to be in a really, really strong position, and is what we try and do here at Borderless. First of all, the occupation code genuinely matches the job. There's no discrepancy between the SOC code description, job description. I always say here, put your hand up. If it seems uncertain, it probably is. Never, veer on that side of things. Secondly, everyone should know this by now, but the salary has to be at or above the going rate for that code, for the SOC code. And again, make sure that on an ongoing basis after, there's no deductibles that might be bringing them underneath that going rate in any pay period. Third of all, working hours that make the effective rate add up. Is there a mismatch between hourly and total, given they're doing 37.5, 40, 45 hours a week? Also, a start date that's realistic and consistent. Perhaps if you're submitting on a Friday, don't put the start date for the Monday. Again, this is just an easy way for the Home Office to reject your application. And then again, with that, job description that matches the role and the code. And then finally, worker details that match their documents exactly. Make sure that there's no typos in a name. Make sure that any addresses are correct across lots of different documents that they may have for you. And we've also got the full guide, or the full version, sorry, of what makes a really strong CoS application free to download, which I'm going to share at the end as well. Of everything on that list, three things really catch providers out far more than the rest. First of all, the occupational code. Pick the code for the job that's actually done, not just the closest fit. And as I said before, if there's any uncertainty in that, definitely veer on the side of, okay, let's recheck this, let's get another set of eyes. Second, salary against the going rate, what you actually pay, the actual hours has to be clear, that rate for the specific code. And for care, that means at least £25,000 a year, or £12.82 an hour. or the going rate if that's higher. And then finally, just that role description, it has to match the code and genuinely describe the job that they're doing. And again, this has consequences downstream. I think, where was I? I think I was doing a registered manager's talk, I think in Surrey, where someone was telling me the role description, then actually what the worker was doing. And the two things were very, very different. And they said, yeah, but I maybe get everyone that works for us to do this specific thing. And I think it was maybe around washing the sheets or doing washing for the whole organization. But again, this is kind of a compliance flag, because again, if that job or that description or responsibility wasn't outlined in the job description and matches the SOC code, they really shouldn't be doing it. And unfortunately, you do have to be a lot more strict with what sponsored workers are doing. So again, like, get these three things right, and most queries never happen. Right, so we've spoken a bit about what a great CoS application look. I now want to go on the flip side and really look at specific mistakes that trigger a query for further docs, requests, refusal, and what they can cost you as an organization. Also, just going to quickly check the questions. Cool. So we've got some current sponsor license has been revoked. Does care worker whose current sponsor license has been revoked from the. So someone's asking, does a care worker whose current sponsor license has been revoked fall under undefined CoS category? Yeah, that's totally correct. They'll be defined as displaced, and you can hire them under undefined CoS. I guess like they're already in the UK, and they do have a period of time where they can be rehired before their curtailment letter runs out. Liz is asking, so we don't pay sick pay, so if this was deducted, would that be a problem because they wouldn't hit the salary that you said you're paying them? Yep, Liz, we've actually run webinars with HMRC around national minimum wage and underpayments as well, and things like this, as well as deductibles for like cars, deductibles for accommodation, can bring someone under that threshold, whether or not it's because of sick pay or because of like a loan or something like that. Something really to watch out to. I can definitely double check this as well with our immigration experts. Cool. So what are the usual triggers? These are the four things that, again, we see trigger queries and refusals, and I guess it's just, you know, the flip side of what we're saying to do correctly. You know, first of all, that salary doesn't match either below the going rate or with hours that don't add up to the effective rate. The wrong occupational code, where the role is mapped to a code that doesn't really fit. A start date that slips or contradicts the rest of the application. And then finally, a role that isn't clearly genuine, you know, vague or inconsistent job description and evidence, you know, especially if it's things like you're not being able to evidence in part of your CoS application the difference between maybe the hours you're aiming to deliver or the contracts you have, and maybe the hours that your current workforce is able to deliver as well. But these are like four small things, and all of them can essentially stall a hire and push start dates back, which is really, really frustrating for both the individual and also the business. Also, the cost of getting this wrong is real. You know, if you you know, consistently putting in or consistently getting your CoSs rejected or further doc requests are coming back to you, then it triggers an audit, and perhaps you don't pass the audit with flying colors. You know, the civil penalties for illegal working, you know, start at £45,000 per worker for that first illegal working breach, and then can go up to £60,000 per worker for repeat breaches. Every quarter, the Home Office actually names and shames organizations get these legal working fines, and it goes from like, household names in adult social care all the way down to small organizations. And obviously the worst case outcome can be a suspended or revoked license and the loss of every sponsored worker. Maybe for some companies, this isn't business ending, but quite often I talk with some who say, 50, 60, 70% of their workforce is sponsored. So I think protecting a sponsor license is of increasingly high priority. Cool. So we've kind of tried to distill this into to run before you assign any CoS, and you can run this every time. So you can catch these on your side and make sure they're all lined up before putting the application in. Again, much of this echoes what we've previously discussed, and we've got a full checklist that you can download towards the end of this session to go through this and actually tick through them the next time you're doing a CoS. But what I really want to zoom into, and it's coming up to one of the last sections before we go into the Q&A, it's just all around building that CoS timelines into your planning, as we get lots of questions around this. People are unsure about when they need to put an application in or when they can assign a CoS. And really, like this, if you just know these simple timelines, you're not going to fall into the trap again. I guess just a question to ask everyone, even when you're coming up to renewals, like, how far ahead do you usually assign a CoS before the start date? I'm actually going to push out a Q&A for this one. How far? Bam, I'm just going to push that. Okay, I'm just going to let that one answer. Give that a second. Cool. So what are people saying? Are you assigning it more than 3 months? I'd be surprised if you are. 1 to 3 months, under a month, or you assign as soon as you can. Cool. Just going to give that 30 more seconds. Have a sip of my thing. Also, I'm going to see what questions are in the chat. Cool. And then also nice. So that poll is now coming to an end, and I can see that the most people are falling within that bracket of 1 to 3 months, which is correct. So obviously you can assign a CoS up to 3 months before the start date. So 1 to 3 months is a really, really strong position for people to be in. Under a month, obviously pushing it quite close, maybe creating some unneeded uncertainty. Assign as soon as you can. That's also a good idea, especially if you've got like that smaller workforce and you can do it on a more ad hoc basis. Cool. But I think the best thing to do is to work backwards from anyone's start date, and then you can plan the timeline, not just the hire. So if you work backwards from the date, you need someone on the rota or someone to start. Before you assign, you can confirm that you've got allocation left. You can see how many undefined CoSs you have in your sponsor management system. You can see that the worker's eligible, including either they're switching or they've already been on your payroll for 3 months, and then you can assign that clean CoS. Then the worker applies for their visa, and there's a processing window on that, which unfortunately you don't control. It's with the individual and with the Home Office. Then you can get a decision and a start date, and each of those steps takes time. And if you assign at the last minute, a single query, which is exactly what we've been talking about avoiding, can push the whole thing past the date you needed them. So just really building in that buffer and assign as early as you can, as I see many of you are already doing. You can also track your renewals and visa expiries ahead of time, not the week they fall due. It'd be interesting to know how people are currently tracking that or what mechanisms you use to track that. And then finally, keep an eye on how many undefined CoSs you've got left in your allocation, because running out is its own delay, and we're going to talk about the exact timelines next. I think I ran a poll a few weeks ago asking people, do you know exactly how many undefined CoSs you have left in your allocation? And it was roughly 50-50. 50% of people did know, but the other 50% of people didn't know. And if you don't even know how many CoSs you're sitting on, it's hard to future plan allocations of hires and allocations of those CoSs. And again, those providers and organizations who are never left scrambling are the ones who really work backwards from the rota, from the start date to when you need CoSs, when the CoS application goes in. But this is a question we get more than any other. How long does it actually take in terms of days and weeks? And here are the numbers that we can play around with. Assigning a CoS itself is immediate as long as you've got room in your allocation. And because these are undefined, they get drawn straight from your annual pot. But the thing that really catches people out is how long it might take to top up your allocation. So if you've got 0 CoSs, or maybe you've only got a handful and you're going to use more of them, it can take up to 18 weeks on the standard service with the Home Office to get more CoSs. You can also opt for the priority service, which is 5 working days. We've seen most people opt for the priority service because 18 weeks is quite a long time to think ahead. So we see most organizations use the priority service, which is again 5 working days. But this is 5 working days considering there's no back and forth between you and the Home Office, and there's no request for further docs. Once you assign, the visa decision can also take up to 8 weeks on the standard service, and faster on priority or super priority. So you can imagine 18 plus 8 weeks. That can be 26 weeks, or nearly half a year if you go down the standard route and there's a few back and forths with the Home Office. Hence, thinking about this sooner rather than later is really, really a good use of time. And if you do need that more allocation, it's a long period from getting it to the first hire. Again, you can opt for the priority route with many of these things, and squeezing 26 weeks down to almost 6 days or 2 weeks. But again, I think it's always best not to be scrambling when it comes to your undefined CoSs. And on that point, from scrambling to in control, we really support providers and organizations from when putting in a CoS request via the Borderless platform, every CoS is checked against the rules before it's assigned. Any salary deviations are flagged in the going rate for the code automatically. Reporting right to work and expiry dates tracked in one place, real-time alerts for when allocations are going low, or when someone might need a new visa within 120 days, 60 days, 30 days. And more importantly is that full audit trail, ready the day the Home Office might ask. And having built this and processing roughly like 75 CoSs a week, we've become quite good at it. And our better internal processes for our customers, we've seen a 96% approval rate for CoS applications on behalf of customers that we support. And I think what we're seeing more generally in the sector is roughly a 30% approval rate. So that's a 66% increase in success on CoSs due to how thorough we are with putting them forward to the Home Office. And I guess, something to leave, isn't, what we're just saying, but it's what providers are saying as well. I think, who is this? This is Katrina Weber from Good Oaks. If anyone knows the Good Oaks franchise network, saying, you know, having Borderless does handle compliance, give them real peace of mind, and the transparency of the platform, expert advice from our team, you know, made a real huge difference. So if you are still struggling with COSs, if you want more support post this session with getting those COSs, you know, please don't hesitate to reach out to anyone in our team. And there are real two ways to turn today's session into action. First of all, as part of our partnership with Birdie, we'd love to extend 10% discount off of all selected monthly plans to anyone that's registered for this session, especially for Birdie customers, to really support them maintaining home office compliance. And again, we've got a free 1-hour drop-in with an immigration advisor specifically for Birdie customers, which we will be emailing around. So almost imagine it as a session with one of our immigration advisors. It'll probably be Alina or Lal, where you can just ask all your questions unfiltered and get really specific answers as they're IAA regulated, whereas unfortunately I'm not. I know lots about dealing with the home office, but I'm not IAA accredited. So you'll have the opportunity to speak with them, and we'll be sharing that promotional or sharing the registration link soon after this. And then finally, just before we get into the Q&A, I spoke about our free COS you can download now on the screen, or you can feel free to book some time in with someone in the team straight away. Cool. So let's now, I'm going to leave this on the screen. I'm going to flick back to the webinar platform, and really happy to start going through some of the questions you've got. So let me have a look. Cool. So we've got, I think we got to Liz's question. We've got a question from Carl around going rate if higher. I'll get to that in a second. Deborah. Deborah, interesting question. I might just have to take that one away because I think there are some things here around like maybe how long they'll be on holiday, how long they'll be outside the UK. Would have to know the full picture here to give you a correct answer. Munaf is asking, how does the annual allocation of CoSs work? Yeah, great thing. We didn't cover too much of that today, but as an organization, when you get your sponsor license, you'll be given a specific amount of undefined COSs, and you can go into the sponsor management system and request that becomes like an annual allocation, such that on your sponsor license, like birthday per se, you'll get an automatic top up. But if you're consistently not using these, the Home Office will decrease it, and obviously if you use more than them, you'll have to do an in-year request to get more COSs. Someone's asking what's cost for compliance. This really depends on the size of you as an organization or what kind of support you would need. Everything is bespoke and tailored for each organization. So feel free to reach out if you want something more concrete in terms of pricing. Cool. Thanks, Prashant, for moderating. And thanks for sharing the checklist so you can click through it there. Looking at, again, those current challenges and effective strategies to implement. Cool. I can't see any more chat, and it's almost like we're almost. Oh, I just see another question. Does it take long to receive a CoS increase? So depending if you're talking about increasing the amount of CoSs you have, and I think we covered it such that if you go down the typical route with the Home Office, it can take up to 18. Is it 18? Let me flip back to the slide. Up to 18 weeks to get more CoSs, but about 5 days if you go down the priority service. Cool. I think we've almost finished bang on time, which is great because I haven't been rambling. Carly's saying, just going back to the question, if other workers have a higher hourly rate, do you need to change the sponsored workers to? No, so it's still at your discretion what you want to pay your workers. So as long as you're meeting the requirements set out by the Home Office with the minimum salary for the sponsored workers, they don't necessarily have to match maybe your domestic workers. We do see some organizations make sure they match across the board so that it doesn't feel like perhaps there's any difference if they're delivering the same quality and amount of care. But again, this is more of a business internal decision rather than a Home Office consideration. Jason's asking, what will happen after July 2028? As it currently stands, you're unlikely to be able to sponsor to care workers post 2028. But one thing I would urge is 2028 is still quite far away. And, we've got lots of organizations, lots of partners who are advocating pro-sponsorship, pro-immigration, specifically within the adult social care. Even at Borderless, we're doing lots of work with displaced workers and everything we can to support organizations. And I think lots is going to change with the new government. So let's see after summer recess what does come out. Memory is asking around pay. Again, there's lots of nuances. So I can't say if it is or is not acceptable here. You would have to give a bit more context because it's based over pay periods, based off SOC codes, etc. Deep is asking, how does the 1 hour session with immigration work? So what we're looking to do is set up like more of a virtual roundtable with an immigration expert from Borderless, where it's just going to basically be an hour of Q&A. Please note this is primarily for providers. If you are a sponsored worker, you might find some benefit in it, but it's through the lens of a provider. Adora is asking, we have an employee's CoS visa is finishing soon. However, due to the visa that the Home Office has given, it states she has done some time with 11 days. Do you have any again? Again, there's lots that go into these questions of, do we have to renew? Do we not have to renew? For example, do you want to renew it? Is this person going to be staying with you? Where are they at with their ILR process? Again, a bit more context is needed, and I don't want to speak or give you any definitive answers when I'm not sure of all of everything that's gone into it. Cool. Jay saying you've just got a CQC registration, which is great. That's the first step and needed within the care sector if you want a sponsor license. What do you need to be mindful of? So Jay, if you just started out, you just need to be mindful that you've got a genuine need for sponsored workers. You've got a UK bank account, and looking forward, you're committed to the ongoing compliance duties. Again, about 50 to 60 companies every single day get a sponsor license. So this isn't just a small thing on the fringes. Across the UK, lots of companies are successfully doing this. Maybe just got to be mindful of the Home Office fees. You've got to be mindful of your ongoing duties, and that you have a genuine need for sponsored workers. But we put lots of sponsor license applications forward to the Home Office, many of which are successful. So you definitely can, if that's a route you're going to go down. But yeah. Cool. Well, thank you very much, everyone. I'm not sure if you had any final words, Lucy. No worries. If not, I'm not going to put you on the spot.
No, just to say thank you. Really, really informative. I didn't abandon you. I just wanted to give you the space to speak on this really important topic. Thank you very much. And yeah, everyone do follow up with Borderless. There's so much going on in this particular space, and they can really help you out. And if you want to join Flock as well, then that link was in the chat, and that's a free community for you to also share your questions and get real responses from people doing what you're doing right now. So thank you, Will. Thanks very much, and thanks everyone for coming.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lucy. And just to echo, there's lots of conversations I've seen on Flock around Home Office, around immigration. So it's a great place to go learn from one another, maybe talk to individuals about how they're doing things internally and the systems they're using. And again, definitely reach out to Lucy and the rest of the team at Birdie if you think they can support you as well. Cool. Well, thank you so much, everyone. I hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday.
Thanks all.